Good afternoon and welcome to this Beyond Series edition where I have some amazing personalities with great products to let you know how technology and innovation come together to preserve culture. With me on the call, we have Nthati Machesa. And Nthati, say hi to the masses.
Hello, hello. Pew, 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 pew.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and we're really excited to dive into it. We have an amazing mind. She is a smart, creative girl, and I can't wait for you to hear about her story. And Tati, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce us to you. Who are you? Why are you? How did you land up here?
Oh, why are you? You see, starting with the difficult questions again, my friend. Hello, everybody. My name is Nthati Machesa. I always had trouble with this, but I'm going to start with this one, like describing who I am. Ke mokopu wa mahetokomane. Ke kubu ntsha maruta re bone. Ha ona tele jana ona sumise ka selumang ka metsing. Kubu ya dihlapa di one distractor man. Kubu ya dihlapa di potlame metsi a sia a ya bophirimela a mang a ya botjhabela. Ha le tsena tsa tsheu di a bokotswa. Kubu mahete. Madiba ke a hao. So that's me, ke Mokopu wa Mahetokomane, and I am a lover of life. I am a lover of fine things, and I'm a lover of art and expressing myself through any form of art, anything that has to do with expressing. I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of living a full and fun life.
All right. I see someone's trying to peek in through the door. All right, so first question. Why
Yes.
has culture and its representation been so important to you throughout your life? I mean, you started out by introducing yourself with your tagazelos,
Yeah.
it's such a profound way to do that. So why has it been so important for you?
I think I don't know. Some things are just natural. I've been thinking about this, and I'm just like, some things are just natural. It's just been such a calling to just go into it, right, and be more understanding of the culture or what it is, because there's that, when you practice it, there's that element of people that frown upon it when you practice it. So that always made me curious. Sort of, why is there such a clash between existing as a Black person and existing in the rules that exist as well. So that made me curious, and I just went more and more into culture to just find out why. And the why for me is, I think I'll also seeing my dad was quite a culturist. He was a very proud Mosotho man. So that I kind of took that from him, to be proud in being Mosotho and knowing yourself. So, ha ke qeta ho talk right now, I can already feel, man, I've already introduced you to me. I've already introduced you to my people as well. My identity is I know who I am. I know, usually you get like, yo, guys, I have sports, I have dancing, hey, man, oh man, and that's I think that's what drives me, with culture, with knowing who I am. I have my identity, and I stand strong in my identity.
Okay, so you speak a lot about the truth of who you are and existing in that, right? I think
Yes.
for me, I'm curious about, does this make you feel like you belong to a people, to a practice, or is it something that you get to innovate on? Because I don't know many Musutu women who would carry a crystal on their head, right? So, how does culture form a part of this identity that we create and present to the world?
So I think, with the way that we carry ourselves with culture, right? I like the concepts of culture. I like a concept of belonging. I like a concept of doing things that then I can identify who, oh, ke Mosotho wa bona. I like that. But I think also touching on evolving the art, evolving it. I like the evolution of it, where it could be more than that. That was just one of the things that we used to do, but it could be more than that. And I think tapping into it and trying to reinvent myself in it, it's just like, that's the basis for me. That's the foundation, but it's not entirely me. It's just the foundation that allows me to be me.
For
Yeah.
sure. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. I think we introduced this talk as an opportunity for technology and innovation to meet preserving heritage.
Yeah.
And there's context that I feel the audience is completely missing here. So, can you tell us a little bit about where you were, where you are and where you plan to be. Give
Okay.
us the line.
All right. So I created a little something for the audience. Guys,
Yeah,
prepare yourself for a story time. Barineri. Friend, you must say koi. You know, when I say barineri, you must say koi. Okay?
that's a lot. We didn't prepare for this before the
Okay.
tour.
Barineri or koi.
Okay, sure.
Okay, let me know once you can see everything now.
Mhm. Here you
Okay.
go. We're at the presentation.
Yeah. Can you see? Can you see? Can you see?
Perfect.
All right. All right. Why is it presenting it that way? Nonsense. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome to the amazing world of Nthati. Yay. Okay. So this is me in 2015, my first job. I know how I look, but I think at this point I'm thinking I've made it. Everything's gonna be amazing. I've got that it job. I work for the it place. Akumnandi. Hey, little did I know. But we learn from these experiences, so we move. We keep it moving. Something that interested me when I signed my first contract was the line about professionalism, right? There was this other underlying little tone that said blue, black, and white are the exceptional professional way. And that for me, my mind was just like, error does not compute and does and is. So that kept playing in my mind for a very long time that, professionalism needs to be black, it needs to be white, it needs to be these solid colors. But I'm just like, how is it that, we're in an African country and professionalism is seen as these solid, bland colors? Nonetheless, I'm like, okay, sharp hair. I continue down my path in corporate, and in 2017, I registered Nthati. After registering Nthati, I'm thinking, I don't know what it is that I'm going to be doing, but it's just a calling because I prayed about it. So Nthati comes through because I was quite frustrated in corporate. So Nthati comes through, and I have this brilliant idea because I have an IT background to say, hey, let me go into web development. When I era 404 ya shapa happy, boom, my mind is just like, nah, I don't know what it is that I'm doing there. Let's cut it. We're not going to do that. Fine. After that happens, I try again. Something in my mind comes back again to say, remember that line that you read, blue, black, and white, acceptable, professional way. I'm just like, let me do something about it. My mind then started building other things, other concepts, and then I played around with the next concept, which is professional African way, which I started in 2018. In the professional way, I was just trying to figure out elements. What you'll see, I'm using the Kisashreshu Sabasutu, and I am just exploring what we can do with the material to make it look professional. So even the naming, Sidatsa, I also try to incorporate like folklore from home or stuff that I know from home. Mantatisi, I need people to take note of Mantatisi because she plays a very crucial role in the what happens next, right? So Mantatisi, the quote, and then I have Ndudwazana, which is the name my grandfather gave me. And then we have the Nthati dress, which is an ode to my grandmother. And because my sister looks like my grandmother, it felt befitting to do something for her as well. And then we had Zelani tracksuit, something for Friday, something to look nice for, at least we have a full range. From Monday to Friday, we have a full range of what it is that you could possibly do to look African, but also look professional in a sense. And then Ramati ties. Ramati is also an ode to my grandfather. And then I had a series called On Your Culture Shirts and Sweaters. Now that I think about 2018, I was on fire. Man, I was on fire. And then 2018, I get fired. After I get fired, what am I going to do? But in getting fired, I think I was probably it was the funniest moment in my life, actually, because I was just like, why am I so happy that I got fired? I had no other idea of what it is that I wanted to do, but yeah, I was just so happy that it actually happened. I was relieved for some odd reason. And then I got a nudge from the universe to say, study animation. But I think I was just overthinking it. Animation because I was looking at the courses. Hey, Mona, they were talking like crazy amounts, and I just didn't know where to get the funding from, or it didn't occur to me that I can do like self-study, in this field of animation. So I continue in being fired. I continue down the path of creating professional African wear, and we end up with some amazing designs. I still think they're amazing, but I'm learning as well in this path that the first idea normally doesn't work out, and if it doesn't work out, it's okay to move on to the next, which is something that you will see I do a lot. So I go to NYDA. After the training with NYDA, I'm assigned a person called Tidiso. Tidiso tells me that if I want to thrive in this industry, the one thing that I need to look into is creating my own material and my own designs. So I hit the boards again, and here you see I incorporate the Sutu the Sutu patterns here. And what struck me about this when I was creating this, I'm like, isn't it crazy that Ishtresher is something that actually came from Turkey and it got adapted by Mushasha because he liked Ishtresher, right? And now it's our cultural material. And what I also found very interesting is that with all the manufacturers of this material, Black people are not the people that own this, right? And what also makes it funny is that even when you go into town to look for material, we are not the people that own the stores that sells this material. So it just got me thinking about now creating my own material, how that would translate, So we have this designs that I created using all the patterns that I've created. It was a very expensive, one of my most expensive tryouts attempts actually to date, because it was quite expensive to produce from start to end, And then COVID hits. Mara, in the midst of COVID hitting, this culture also calls me again. We need to find ways to preserve culture. We need to find ways to tell stories. We need to find ways to make culture look cool. And then Underground Gang comes, and the whole concept behind Underground Gang, like I said, the whole concept, I create this logo where now it represents Bakubung, for instance, and after Bakubung, at the back, where now it just educates you. It not only educates the people, but it also like enlightens you on who you are. Other people don't know Director Zabona, and it's always interesting for them to be like, oh, yes, I just never knew the whole thing. So that's where then I would come in, right? I don't think it works out very well, because now there's the whole work thing that I'm still going through. Work for me, I had gone back to work around that time, but work was still chaotic at that time. So I felt this desire to just go into drawing, go into animating, go into, I didn't trust my skill at that time, to say, hey, how get to drawing? And if I'm going to explain it, who does it? Who understands what Popeye? So I just didn't have the language for it. I didn't have the explanation for what it is I wanted to do, but I followed the nudge nonetheless, because it was just getting hectic by this point. So I decided, 2022, I'm going to resign, and I had no plan. I just knew that I wanted to learn how to 3D model, and I had been seeing a couple of courses, and I'd been seeing a couple of people posting around 3D modeling and how then they got into modeling in Blender, and there's free software and whatnot. So I was like, you know what, there's free software, there's YouTube, I might as well dive in. And that's exactly what I did. I started then learning how to 2D digital art. I don't know how to phrase that correctly, but yeah, that's what I started doing. And 4 months later into the year, I came up with this concept called the Royal Heritage Chess Set, where I take the story of the Mfecane Wars and then I associate it with each piece that you see here. So I came with the concept 5 months later without even knowing what it is that I'm doing. And Nthati Machesa, like I said, take note of her. Nthati comes through because then she inspired the piece, the queen. And with the idea of the chess set, which is then what I created with Blender from the concept now, from the 2D concept to the 3D concept, this is what I came up with. And everything that you see here is inspired by certain things from that Mfecane eras. What you see here is the king and the king's story. We talk about the necklace, how he acquired the necklace and how he acquires that animal skin that he wears. Basically, we're talking about how the king acquires his armor here. With the queen, we talk about forgotten queens, because if you play chess, the thing that you will notice in chess is that the queen is the most powerful. She moves all over the place. But when you take her off the board, the game still continues. Whereas the king moves only once. And when you take him off the board, the game is over. And I talk about how then the woman will do so much, and when she's gone, nobody wants to talk about her legacy. And this is why I associated with Nthati. This is why she's important, because she used to lead 44,000 people in war at that time, in that era. And I think it's something that needs to be known. It's something that we need to celebrate as women as well in the in Southern Africa. And then we have the bishop. I had trouble coming up with this one, but the bishop talks about a lot of things, and I think that's why it was such an intricate piece to come up with. It talks about African artifacts, it talks about the African mosques, it talks about the Ankh, it talks about forced religion, it talks about lost identity within the colonization, it talks about quite a number of things. So yes, and then we talk about the night. The night then focuses on the Bohon formation, Shaka Zulu, because then I was just interested into when war happens, what happens, what is the strategy that is implemented so that the people can protect themselves from other people, from foreign people or whatever comes into the kingdom. And then we have the hut. The hut for me focuses on the architecture of the African. What would have happened? And asking the question, what would have happened to our African architecture had we not been colonized? It's just a reimagining of what it would be, what it would look like had we not been colonized. And it's also questioning a couple of things about the African architecture, because you'll see that it's quite cylindrical, and it got me quite fascinated. Everything is just circular. What is it about the circular motion? What is it about the circle, And then there was the drum. The drum then becomes the pawn, and it's just to highlight that it's all about transformation and it's all about communication as well. And something amazing happens to the pawn when it gets to the other side of the field. It gets to transform into being, people often transform it or to be a queen. So the symbolism behind the pawn is that you need to march to your own beat so that you can transform yourself into being a queen. Nthati creates this nice concept, and then what next? Now I'm confused. I have a concept, and then I post it online. After posting it online, a lot of people like it and they say you need to 3D print this. Then the makerspace finds me. 2023, I always say the makerspace, you don't find the makerspace, the makerspace finds you. So it finds me, 2023, in such a weird way, but it finds me. And as it finds me, I am introduced to 3D printing and laser cutting. So you'll see here that this is it was the concept. And then I started learning what 3D printing is. And then I started learning about what 3D laser cutting is. I learned about slicing. I learned about what materials we use for 3D printing. In a way, I got introduced into manufacturing, the beginning stages of manufacturing. And then with that, in 2023, I got to see Nthati can be an MC. Nthati ki teacher, I can teach. So I started teaching 3D modeling based on the being self-taught basically on Blender, you know. And then in that moment, I had to learn how to use Autodesk Fusion 360, so that for the workshops that we would then start attending, I would teach in Fusion 360, as this is the industry standard, right? And then a lot of things started opening up, exhibitions and workshops. I started attending a lot of exhibitions. I started attending a lot of workshops with just the concept and just being exposed to 3D printing. And this is the final product that then I would be showing other people. This is my story. This is what we've been able to come up with. I've been blessed to then present the whole chess set, go Africa Museum for one of their activation dates. I was also on Trends Live at some point with just the concept of just relaying the story behind the chess set, you know. And just to recap right now on the technology involved in this project, I've spoken about 2D digital art, which is the concept that I created. From the concept, then I created a 3D model, which is what we call 3D modeling over here. And then I introduced animation as well. I got introduced to 3D printing, and then I got introduced to laser cutting. Present day, I think when I started the business, I never really knew what it is that I wanted to do. And because of the training that I've been getting, the assistance that I've been getting, it's very easy for me now to just say, "Okay, I want to be the Walt Disney of Africa." Nthati is really working to be the Walt Disney of Africa. And where we are right now with the concept that we've created, Val University of Technology has offered sponsorship. So they're creating a life-size chess set, which will be housed at Museum Africa in Newtown. We're then going to be launching our product quite soon. We'll reveal the dates at that time. And with the realization of where we are as a business right now, we also have to talk about the rebranding, because from what I've been seeing with my social media, people tend to think I'm a chess manufacturer, whereas I'm just trying to tell African stories through animation. You know, that's the gist of what I do. I am trying to be that Walt Disney that preserves culture through different forms of animation, and it comes in different forms of art, you know. And tech is the driving force behind Nthati. So we're rebranding. We currently have scripts that we're writing right now that we pitch into animation studios that are centered around the chessboard in itself. Currently in training with the Orange Corners, and Orange Corners now has been kind enough to just give us assistance in how to monetize the whole business now, to like express what it is that you're looking for, what do you want for the business, and how do we get there, you know, understanding all these things for a business in the arts, you know. And coming soon, like I said, we have the life-size chess sets, we have the pieces that are currently being manufactured that will be then, you will be able to buy them online very, very soon. And we're looking for sponsors, obviously, with everything that's happening. Everything is coming together. Mara that chankura, guys, that chankura, you know. So we're looking for sponsors that can then help with the whole performance that we're trying to put together for Africa Museum with the chess pieces, with the live chess pieces. We're looking for funding for branding the business, for, you know, a couple of things. So that's what we're looking for. And what does the future hold for Nthati? Like I said, I am the Walt Disney of Africa. So, yeah, this is where you can find us on WhatsApp. I'm quite active on WhatsApp. You'll become one of my sunbeams on WhatsApp, you know, and on all the social medias. On social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on TikTok. It's Nthati SA. Nthati SA, and the website is also coming soon. Thank you. Get some
No, thank you so much. I think it's so beautiful for us to interact with your brand like this. From the inception to where it currently is, you have a lot to be proud of. And a chess set is quite a permanent way to make sure that you're able to have the story being told consistently. I think for me, one of the things that strikes me the most about your product is how each piece has detail that has a story. So there isn't just an anything. It's really, really beautiful. So really, really happy that you were able to share your story, and I hope you found a lot of gratitude walking through your history like that. Um,
Yes.
there was something that you said that really, really struck me. You spoke about how you didn't have the language, and that was hindering you from, I guess, getting approval and acceptance about this dream. Because you left varsity, I am an IT graduate, and
Awesome. Yes.
exactly. So I'd like to ask you the question, like this many years into your journey, have you found the language?
I think I have, and it only happened this year, 8 years into it. So I think also I appreciate that this had to happen because I had to put everything together. And hey man, I don't know if you guys body retrograde and whatnot. I've just been going through it where you just like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Oh my goodness. I was just there. But I think putting everything together just helped me realize that man, the journey comes together in ways that you don't even know. Everything is so
Yes.
interconnected. I used to be like, I don't even know why I studied IT. I don't even know who is. But
Yeah.
if you think about it, because I became a data analyst in what's this in corporate, I became a data analyst. What I do is literally data analytics because as a
Yes.
data analyst, as an artist, it's your job to look at whatever's happening in the world, right? And you then need to refine whatever information that you get. From getting that information, then you start then creating whatever it is, creating sense, creating value out of that data that you get. And
Mhm.
for me, I see a direct correlation between whatever it is that I used to do in corporate to what
Mhm.
it is now, because now it's visually represented. Do I have the language to say it right now? Yes, because people can understand when I say I want to be the Walt Disney of Africa. I used to say, hey, you're about 3D concept artist. Nobody understands that.
No.
Nobody understands that. People just understand, oh, there's a Walt Disney. And that's the dream that I want. That's what I want. So it helps me understand that I need to put everything together.
Oh, did we lose Nthati? It looks like we may have. I've noted all of your questions in the chat and also noted all the really cool comments that you've been sharing with us. Thank you so much. I will get to Koi confidently.
But you said it so nicely. You said it so
Nthati's
nice.
okay, but yes, you were speaking about associating yourself with something familiar to people, and that would be the Walt Disney of Africa.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So there are people in the chat that are not in South Africa, from South Africa, or may not have a lot of interaction with the country. And there are a lot of questions around what Neotsintle means.
Oh, okay. So Nthati means beautiful gifts. So when I was coming up with, I remember when I was just like in that moment in time when Nthati would come about. It was during my time in corporate where I was genuinely not having fun.
Yeah.
And I was praying. I was like, okay, Dim, let's do this, right? Declare us all, right? I'm gonna pray about this, and you're gonna lead me, right? Whatever happens, happens, but I need it to be an impactful name that will embody who I am and it will embody everything that I am. It must not hinder me from being who I am. So let's just give me a name that will resonate with that. And then after a while, hey, give easy man. Hey, now it's in something, yeah, man. There's something about now it's in There's something about now it's in So now it's in came about, and it means beautiful gifts. And
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So before we transition to the next speaker, let me just ask you one more question. What is the coolest thing that you have learned through this deep dive that you've done into culture?
I think the more curious I become, the more curious I become. That's the problem, number one. But number two, I think it's just really understanding how smart our people are. We take that for granted. We take for granted the way that we speak. I've found that language holds so much encryption that if you just understand things things will be so much better, you know. And the science behind it, the mathematics behind it. There's this book that I'm currently reading. I bought it a couple of years ago, and I tried reading it, and I was just so upset for how is it that we always try to preserve culture, or we try to preserve these narratives, but the language that is used is very academic. So I used to have a problem with that. I mean, this person wrote some very important things in here, but because it's so academic, it's difficult to grasp what it is that they say.
Mhm.
So I think discovering this book has opened up something in me, because he speaks about the language and exposes the mathematics behind the language. From the greeting, he draws a triangle alone. The greeting is looking for space, looking for you in time, and then locating you. And we've already created that triangle, you know. So it's just discovering those minor things that, hey man, there's so much to learn, there's so much to unlearn at the same time. So that's what I'm appreciating.
Oh, lovely. All right, Nthati, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us. Wishing you so much luck on the journey with the chess set.
Thank
And
you.
we're looking forward to seeing all the developments and growth. I hope you guys all noted the Instagram handles and the TikTok handles, and you'll be blowing up Nthati's page soon. Have a lovely afternoon.
All right, thank you.
All right. So next up, I'm going to be inviting Mandisa Vundla, who is a phenomenal writer, absolutely phenomenal. But she didn't just take the oral culture of poetry and leave it there. She went steps further in creating a product that helps us remember our heritage and our lineage. Not only did she do that, she ventured into writing tribute poems. I don't want to spill all the great things that she has to share with us, but we do have an amazing video to intro her. So let's go with that.
Dear Miriam, I am holding the keys to your songs in my hands. I know you opened the world with a mouth full of teeth, clinging to the border. You held the click of our bones in the twist of your tongue. You electrifying song, burning through skin and bone. When you sing, salt water seeps through your throat, sterilizes our bones, soaks all our stones, and all our blood returns with a pulse to its people. You made music like you were making a war cry for its mother tongue. Though home was a distant wounded storm, you sang for the hurricane gushing through our bones. You gave noise a quiet voice for grieving, a gentle blues for the descendants of a noose, for jumping jacks, for kings and queens of solitaire. I hope you rest in the music you gave. Our country is still a bleeding tune. We do not sing the way we sang along to you, Mazi. You may be gone in the song of bone and the music of drying flesh. Your organs may have stopped playing. Your body is mute, but the music hasn't stopped breathing for you.
Goodness gracious, I had to like mute myself completely because there were some punchlines there that I was completely not ready for. Mandy, when you're ready, do join me on stage. it was phenomenal to hear of your work of Miriam Makeba. And there's so many people who talk about the idea of being immortalized in art. And it's such a beautiful tribute to give someone like Miriam Makeba. Mandy, thanks for joining me.
Hello.
Behind you. Okay.
I'm
So let's
good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I think there's a bit of a lag in the network, so we'll give each other a chance in between the questions here. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of poetry as one of the original crafts that existed on the continent, right? What are your feelings and your takes as a writer and
Yeah.
practitioner around this being a tool for preservation?
I think for me, there was a series, I'll remember what it was now. And they portrayed the poet as the commentator within the community, the poet who hears the things that people don't hear, who listens to the things that people don't listen to. And then that role, the commentator moves around the community between the women who are selling at the market or between the women who are weaving baskets, and they relay what they are seeing. And that's actually the cultural legacy of poetry in its indigenous form. The poets were the people whose ears were always sharp. They kept their ears to the ground, and then they would tell you what's coming before they could foresee, because they can use literature to confront and to say the things that are not supposed to be spoken about. They hiss, in the sidelines, and they say the things that are not allowed to be said, And I think for me, I remember watching the series, and I thought, oh my God, I want to see more portrayals of poetry in this light on national television in a commercial way, to remind us that we are the ones who are archiving the times, right? We are the ones who are preserving today to retell the stories and relay to future generations. And when we got into the culture as Africans of writing, you know what I mean? Now we can preserve the story. The story is no longer passed down orally. Now the stories are written. Now we write, and of course there's a commercial aspect to it. There's a performance aspect to it. It's a contemporary way, but that's where poetry actually comes from. The orators of the time. And I think for me, that's how even though I don't necessarily write with the perspective of being an orator, like I don't put that responsibility on my shoulder. I don't say, oh, I'm going to archive the times. Oh, I want to tell future generations what 2025 looked like. You know what I mean? But actually, even if I don't say that, I realize that, girl, that's exactly what you're doing in the poems that you have actually written. You are archiving the times. So as a pure vessel of oral tradition and historical artifact, man, that's what I think poetry is in its purest sense, or in its purest form.
Yeah. I think contextually to the audience, Mandy and I have walked a long journey. And I think what I find most interesting about our time together, being starving Africans in America, what I find most interesting about is how you've moved from the almost abstract, the idealist kind of poetry into speaking about people who have real impact and who have changed generations and changed the way we listen to music and the way we dance and the way we commune. I think there's something so powerful from what you're saying about being someone who speaks about a current and present time, to being someone who's actually retrospectively saying, I am because of people like Miriam Makeba. I think there's so much power in that. How do you even speak on that outside of your experience of it? Because you must have been a younger girl than you are now.
In actual fact, it was organic, and I really loved that it was organic. I didn't sit and think, oh my God, I want to craft a poem about Miriam Makeba, But for me, what happened was I was going through a very difficult time, because with poetry, just to contextualize poetry in South Africa, the poets are pretty much on stage and in the front lines. We are developing the industry. There is no developed industry. So we are constantly working on the stage and behind the scenes, and we are administrators and all that. And coming up through slam poetry, right?
when I started slamming and so forth. And it's nice to say, oh, I want to be a poet. Oh, I want to be a poet. But when you start writing poems that really people are listening to, like people were listening to my poetry as if they are sitting in a classroom, I think there was a shift that happened that made me panic so much. Sorry. No, you're making a noise. I'm so sorry. There's somebody who's busy in the kitchen and I had to be like, girl, I'm on live. There was a transition in my work where I started realizing how serious the work was. And I was getting gigs from civil society. Like, these people are speaking about like policy changes and all that. And then it's like, that poem, we want your poem to open the show. And I think that was so frightening for me that at some point I had to stop and say, girl, I know you wanted to be a poet, but like now your words are actually meaning something, right? Yeah. They're convincing people for whatever the agenda that is on the table, whether it is women's rights, whether it is race, politics, you're being called to the stage to open the dialogue. You know what I mean? And that was frightening for me. And I started questioning my voice. I remember there were poems about race that I don't write and think, oh, no, this is about race. But I wrote that poem and I remember performing it for the first time at the Melville Poetry Festival. And there were white people in the audience and I was trembling. I didn't know if I should say, even me, I want a white matron. Like, why is it always Black people who are garden boys and all those things? And I think that's when the switch happened, that this is so serious. Now you are confronting not the room, but the people, they're right here now, And I came across an interview, a Miriam Makeba interview, where she says she doesn't write about politics, but she writes, she's archiving the Times, because they classified her as a political, writer, but that was not her intention. She was just using art to kind of like narrate how she's feeling, what she's feeling, and the struggles of her people. And that interview blew my mind, because then when you write politically, even if that's not your intention, even if I'm just archiving my story, right? But as soon as you start writing like that, you are kind of categorized and classified as political. Right. But you're a poet. You're like, but I'm a poet. I write poems. I don't just write those poems, but you start getting booked for those kinds of poems. Right. And so I think that was so frightening for me, where that was when I realized just how serious this thing is. I was like, girl, this is not just you on stage. Look in your cute dress and whatever. This is, a legacy, a voice. You're changing and reshaping the way people are thinking, and people are starting to listen to you, and they're starting to take you seriously. And so when I heard that interview, Miriam Makeba, man, oh my God, I started listening to all her interviews. And I was like, oh, thank you so much, Mazi, for just enabling me to carry the responsibility without feeling burdened by the weight, to be able to define myself as a poet, knowing that holistically, yes, I write about certain things, sensitive subjects and topics, but I also write about love. I also write about, the sun shining, I have other aspirations. I dream, even though everything is always in the context of Blackness, because that's how, I guess it's the body I'm writing in, the vessel is the vessel, but I think she gave me courage. And then after I was able to contextualize, I was like, listen, I'm not political, but of course my work lives there, but I'm a poet, I'm an artist, I create, right? Even though I see in the way that I'm getting work and I'm being booked for work that it's in a certain kind of category, I'm like, don't worry. Miriam went through this, right? She wrote other songs, that had nothing to do with politics, or indirectly maybe they did, but they were fun songs, songs, and so I was able to map out my growth and to kind of like define for myself who I am becoming, and to say, yes, I can do those gigs, but don't worry, it's not taking anything away from the rest of the work that you're doing, from who you are as an artist holistically. And then I just wrote this thank you poem, to her, because I got so emotional when I found her voice. And then I wrote this, Dear Miriam, I am holding the keys to your songs in my hands, and then it grew into a poem. And I remember at that time I was the editor of Active Spaces, and we used to shoot a lot. And I remember feeling like, man, if you leave this environment without shooting something, you must be stupid or something must be wrong with you. You shoot all the time with this production. Make sure that you use the resources here to also shoot something for yourself. So I shot the video, came out beautifully. I didn't release it because something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it. Then I released the album. Then I matched the poem, because now I had released the album and reimagined acoustically the poem, a love song for Miriam. And I was like, this is the song that needs to score that video. And then I was happy with the video because I was like, okay, now I'm happy. I feel like acoustically it's full. And then I just released the video. And yeah, man, it unleashed a whole new path for me. Somebody's like, nobody writes tribute poems like Mandy. I was like, oh, really? Okay. And that was the process, man. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I think they chose the exact voice necessary for that. I've always admired your command, the use of language, the pictures you paint. I mean, I'm quoting you from the love song to Miriam. You said you made music like you made a war cry for its mother tongue, and I was just like goosebumps. So that is really, really beautiful. And I think it's also so important to remember beautiful things beautifully, right? So the question that I'd like to move this conversation to is, okay, great. We've got this culture. We're writing poems. We have this amazing thing. As much as there's a call to action for certain rooms to introduce the conversation, something about it still feels aesthetic and not educational, right? So as Mandi, I know you have a product. How did you move into getting people closer to the reality of who they are outside of the aesthetic of knowing who you are?
I think that comes naturally in the way I project, like in the way I deliver my work, right? I don't deliver poetry. For me, is not an aesthetic thing. I don't do it because it's cool or it looks cool, or we're part of the dreadlock community, the beads, the bangles. You know what I mean? Like, you know, yeah, we look cool while doing it for sure, but like that is in addition. Fundamentally, I don't dress up in my room to write a poem. In actual fact, I'm writing the poem in my pajamas. I'm writing the poem in clothes I was wearing yesterday. I woke up and I wore those clothes. I'm writing the poem on an unmade bed. I'm writing the poem with the dishes unwashed. Like, I'm writing the poem with laundry looking at me in the face saying, girl, when are you going to sort the house out? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tend to that. But like right now I'm in the creative field. It's magnetic and you almost don't want to get out of it so that you can exploit it and mine it as much as you can. So writing even happens in a natural environment. The way the environment is when the poem arrives is how I receive it and write it, right? And I think somebody who listens to the poetry can tell, because a poem that's trying to look good will tell you that, oh no, I'm just about like the rhyme scheme. I just like that rat and mat and sat sound cool in succession when I say when I say them like that, you know what I mean? Versus somebody who stirs something inside of you, like you were saying, like, you made a war cry for its mother tongue. I really think about the war cry, you know, when you do the war cry just before the rugby game or athletics at school, you know, and imagine, but also the war, you know, it's a double meaning, the actual war happening. There's a war, there's a cry because the war is happening, right? So the metaphors are used to elevate and stir versus them just sitting there to look pretty. They actually play a fundamental role in bringing the reader into my bones, you know, bringing the reader into my blood, and to kind of have no, I try for there not to be I try to kind of like become the poem, and I can't, whatever it is that I'm writing about, I have to become the thing. If I'm writing about a summer day, the way the sun, by the time you're done reading the poem, you're going to feel the heat. You know, I almost don't want there to be a difference or a distance between the thing I'm describing and the thing that is on the page. You can't tell. It's like in the album, I'm like, yeah, it's a spoken word poetry album, but I don't want people to tell the poetry apart from the music, even if I'm only speaking. You must know that the voice is rhythmic, right? And so I think those nuggets and the depth, searching for the spirit and the soul of every move that I make. Is it okay with me? I cry a lot when I write. I weep when I write, and I think sometimes I worry. I'm like, you haven't wept. Is this even true? You know what I mean? I'm like, are you sure? You know what I mean? So I move myself first with the work because it is so honest, it is pure. When the truth is so pure, it's just it's the way it is, and I think that's how I write, with such honesty, like such honesty. Even when I say we, I have this thing that I do when I write sometimes. When you're ideating, you don't write in first person voice. It's easier to delegate the responsibility to others, right? It's like they feel like that, But when I start ideating and I really feel the distance, I'm like, well, what does the poem sound like when you say I? When I'm the one who's writing the poem to Miriam, and it's not generally how the people feel, but it's like, what has she done for me? And so I learn a lot that when I start writing, and I don't start writing from first person voice, the poem takes forever to begin, right? And so I have to say, who are you writing for? Who's this person to you? I did a poem for my brother. I was commissioned to write a poem for Brenda Fassie, and I couldn't kind of get the grasp of it until I said, but Mandy, think about her. What is the weekend special to you? And I'm like, this homie, literally, because Brenda ran away from home at the age of 13. Her mother wouldn't let her leave. Her mother was very protective over her. She ran away from home at the age of 13 and she came to Joburg. And I literally was like, this girl actually ran away from home to make our weekends special, Like when I start analyzing her as Mandy, to be like, homie, actually, you did this and you did that. And that's where, for me, the poetry begins in the truth, the story that you're trying to say. Your anthem for African joy. Like when everybody dances to you, play a Brenda Fassie song. Intergenerationally speaking, we are on our toes. Like, that's your power. And so I really have to look at the person and feel the person, and then speak to them in my first person voice as if they're sitting here, to say, you are actually this person. And I think that's where the honesty begins. And that's why when somebody listens to the work, you can hear, it's like it sounds beautiful, but it's also very real. So you can't tell the aesthetic apart from the soul, the spirit, the truth. I kind of like find a way to mold it all in one. So you can't say, oh, it's just a pretty poem, but I'm not moved by it. You're like, oh, it's pretty, and it's making, it's stirring me on the inside. So yeah, man, I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I think that we could just go off for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I think in the idea of preserving culture, the product that you had created is quite phenomenal. For me, I carry your product in my names. Like my family was like, here's the girl, she's gonna carry all of it. Mutinta's from my father's side. Marie Jose is in honor of my grandfather. Shuma is from my like I carry my lineage in my names, right? So for young people today who are maybe looking for a more exciting way to be engaged with their culture, how does Africa as a poem come into play in making heritage fun and cultural practices preserved, and that knowledge transfers so much smoother because of an activity?
So Africa is a poem. One day I'm such a poet, right? That like I also get bored. My superpower, I discovered, is that I get bored very quickly and very easily, right? And once I get bored, it's like, what's next? We have to figure out what's next. And so with poetry, I was like, it would be nice, for sustainability, if we could hide poems inside. Obviously, I was dreaming about product. and I was
Yes.
dreaming about sustainability, and I was thinking about different ways to present poetry in an exciting way. You don't have to know who Mandisa Vundla is to be able to engage my poem, but if you stumbled upon it, could it be fun and exciting for you to actually engage it? So then Africa as a Poem was what the answer initially to that question, to say, let's contextualize poetry in the form of games, something fun and exciting. So one day I was sitting, and I remember I usually follow the International Arts and Craft Market, and like the Scrabble tiles, the wall Scrabble tiles were a very big thing, and I really liked them. But I was like, oh, but what else? And one day I sat and I was like, what if we hid poems inside a word search puzzle, and we had an installation, and if I'm performing, I could have that installation and people could just go and find the words to the poem that I'm reciting inside this word search puzzle, right? What would that look like, And so I searched for it. So before I do something, I always, because everything you imagine exists. So I search for this thing, I don't find it. I don't find anybody who's hiding poems inside a word search puzzle and who's also designing it the way I'm designing it. Because I'm also just like, okay, the traditional word search puzzle looks like this, right? What does your product look like? And I was like, I don't want mine to look like that. I have to figure out a different way aesthetically that, it could look enticing and, aesthetically enticing, but still have meaning. So then I started with the word search puzzle, and then I turn them into these big art pieces, and I do the installation. And after I got the poetry, I was like, yeah, the poets are going to engage this. It's for a niche market. What else? And then I got bored with it, and I was like, shucks, what's next? And I thought clan names. I thought, oh my God, actually clan names are also indigenous poetry. What happens if we hide clan names inside a word search puzzle and then get people to play with it? Actually, forget playing with it. How many of us know our clan names, guys? How many of us know our clan names? We don't know our clan names. This is literally a preservation tool. If you buy yourself a word search puzzle, and whatever size, A3, A4, whatever size, right? If you buy yourself that and then you put it on the wall, nobody's gonna ask. You can play the game and you can find the clan names, but after you found them, nobody's ever gonna ask the next person what our clan names are. Because whenever you ask, there's a recurring answer every single time you ask people about the clan names, especially our generation, because now we are the head of the households, right? We don't know how to do the lobola negotiations. We don't know how to do the funeral processions. It's like, I don't know why nobody taught us how to handle this responsibility. So I asked my peers, I'm like, guys, what are your clan names? And they're like, yeah, I only know one. I only know two. And yeah, I'm not sure. And I'm like, actually, in addition to the poetry installation, which is great and cool, this is more meaningful. It's beautiful. It's cool. It's got the aesthetics, but it's actually meaningful because you can put it on the wall and you can leave it on the wall, and the whole family, everybody who's born in the family doesn't have to turn around and ask the other one. And the other one, so that's a very simplistic, fun, exciting activity to actually preserve our cultural names. Yeah, I think I sent you guys a video. Hopefully we can watch it and people can see actually what we're talking about,
Yeah, we can. Let's see if Michael will be able to cue it up. He'll let us know in the chat.
Yeah.
But I think it's really remarkable that you're not living in the silo of getting people to buy into what you have. You've made it accessible to the masses. So it's always about adapting. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people, because we walk out of high school believing, I just need to do this. And then you get it and you're like, I just need to do this. And then life shows you all of its beautiful and wonderful things. And you're just like, what do I do with all of these feelings? So it's quite a journey. But I do want to thank you so much for being able to spend the time with us to walk through Africa as a Poem and your poetry journey. I think that what you have to offer the world has always been and will always be beautiful. We're just going to give Michael a chance to find the link if it is available. But he's done a stellar job today. I almost feel like we should have a big ups to Michael in the chat. And then also we have a lot of people on the call.
Michael.
We have a lot of people in the chat who are sending messages that are appreciative of your time here. There's someone, Abdul, who says, I believe that these are hints for those who are interested in poetry. This tip is gold. We have Younger saying, I think we need to embrace boredom and not run away from it. I find that very interesting because the previous speaker also spoke about this boredom and what do I do next? And the great ideas seem to land there. Oh, seems like we're losing Mandy's connection as well. I think I'm going to call it. I'm going to call this Beyond series. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched. Um, and yeah, we really do hope that we get to see you next month. We'll make sure that we post all of the videos and posters and presentations for you to have a look at later on all of our channels. But from me, Mutunta Similane, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you have an amazing day. And I do hope to see you at the next Beyond. Bye.